Why, hello there, everybody. Happy Friday. It is a Friday the 11th. We made it to the second Friday of February. Congratulate yourself. Hopefully, you can enjoy the weekend. Hopefully, you don't work during the weekend. And if you do work during the weekend, I hope you have 2 days off that you call yourself a weekend. With that being said, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic next to politics and religion, and that is taxes. Everybody loves paying taxes. They wish they could pay more in taxes. That's right. Everybody wants to pay tax to help keep our government funded. Everybody loves that. But this is part I'm going to be talking about, which is the Texas Robin Hood School Tax Program, which is a recapture. In case you don't know what this is, it is simple. This is just a simple Google search. In Texas, the Robin Hood system takes dollars from property wealthy school districts and distribute that money across the state. However, unlike wealthy suburbs, oil patch schools in the Permian Basin are considered minerally wealthy, therefore they see surges and dips due to oil economy. Of course, many see Robin Hood as a villain, but lawmakers rely on it to pay for schools. Now, I don't think the Robin Hood is a villain in this case. I just think the fact that we don't have an income tax is also meaning that our property taxes go up. And there's no way to tax renters or the population. There's people making 6 figures, 7 figures renting, even though they are paying their landlord or homeowner for renting. That is a very untapped resource there. I don't know if maybe we could do renting taxes to spread the burden. But this was pretty much saying understanding the Texas property taxes and school finances. In Texas, property taxes keep local governments like cities, counties, and school districts operating and pay for everything from police officers' salaries to classroom textbooks. Here's how taxes are calculated and how they could change in 2019. I don't think much has changed, to be honest. I know this is an old article. For some, the debate over how to fund Texas schools, Robin Hood is decidedly a villain. The program, baked into the state education law since 1993, requires the state to take funding from school districts with higher property values within their boundaries and give it to poor school districts that can't raise much money. It's become a symbol of everything that's wrong with the state school finance system, invoked regularly by politicians, promising to help tamp down the rising tax bills. Republican Governor Greg Abbott tweeted earlier this month that Texas will begin dismantling the flawed Robin Hood scheme that has failed our schools. State Rep. Kyle Bitterman, Republican of Fredericksburg, pitched the legislation to stop excessive Robin Hood theft and limit how much the state can take from the wealthier districts. A couple of lawmakers have already filed bills to completely strike the program from the law or from state law. Even even some of the system's biggest critics admit that eliminating the program will be next to impossible this season because the state has set up a school funding structure that relies heavily on property taxes and property values of unequal across the state. Without Robin Hood, schools and properties of wealthy schools districts will have a lot more money to educate their students than those in areas with low property values, likely exposing the whole system to more lawsuit because everything has to be equal, and the wealthy areas are not going to lower their standards in order to be equal with the poor neighborhoods. Not the poor neighborhoods, but the poorer cities. And given the alternatives, like say a state income tax or raising other forms of taxes, lawmakers are unlikely to adopt a new system in which property taxes play a smaller role. So actually, I don't have an issue with income tax as long as we get rid of the property tax. It's either one or the other, in my opinion. Humble opinion. And I also think that parents that make over a certain amount, we can debate how much that certain amount is, has to pay for the schooling or parts of the schooling. Because I have no kids. Unless I find someone who's willing to put up with me and we pop out some kids, I don't see that happening. The state needs a 12-step program. The first step to publicly admit I am a state of Texas and I'm addicted to local property taxes, said Davis Thomas, a lawyer who represented both the state and school districts in lawsuits over school funding. And it goes a little bit more here. It says, how does Robin Hood work? Texas guarantees that every district has a certain amount of funding to meet each student's educational needs. Property wealthy school districts can tax their homes and businesses and raise all the money the state has determined that they need. They end up raising more than that amount the state collects or recapture the additional money through the program also known as Robin Hood. As values grows, Austin ASD pays more of its local tax revenue to the state. In 2014, it was, it's getting you there, but still it's getting about 50%. And then this kind of goes on and on and on and on and on. But according to this, I don't know. This is a Hilly Elementary School funding reform series. I don't know when this was written, so I don't have a timestamp. There's nowhere on here. Texas legislature is in session, and rally day is coming on February 25th. Please read and educate yourself to find out what you could do to improve education for the children in Texas. Below are some data points that will make the budget decisions more personal for our campus and for the families who support us. ASD will pay back $600 million to the state of Texas for the recapture of Robin Hood this year alone. Last year, ASD paid back $530 million to the state to recapture monies. Essentially, ASD pays about 46% of the local property tax received from property owners back to the state of Texas. This amounts to just over $8,000 per student in ASD that will pay back to the state of Texas. The recapture amount of ASD climbs every year due to the Robin Hood formula, rising property values, and no appeal process for ISD to challenge the payout amount that is crippling our school resources. Or you can be responsible and be willing to operate with less. That's a possibility. Or we could break up the school district to reduce the burden to where Austin is not covering all of Austin, but parts of Austin. That might be a way to alleviate some of the school costs. It's just a suggestion. No major urban district in Texas is feeling the budget pitch since the extent of Austin, other than districts paying out the recapture, includes Houston, Dallas, Plano, but no other district is anywhere close to the amount that Austin pays back. AIC is currently operating at a $30 million deficit, dipping into reserve funds to make ends meet this year. But this cannot continue. Once again, you have to fire people. I'm sorry, you're going to have to fire people. As hard as that is, maybe you don't need 20 faculty members to run a front desk. I'm not saying that this school does that, but there are some schools that are really heavy in administration when that could be carved out and more focus on the teachers and the students. Overall, 25% of what the entire state of Texas funds for public education comes directly from what AISD pays back in recapture dollars. 25% of Austin is paying for the state of Texas to fund poor cities. Unfortunately, I'm not against this, but I'm not 100% for this because I understand schools have to get paid and there's a level of standard of education that we must meet to the students. I just wish there was a way for the state of Texas to spread out the burden. I have no issue paying school taxes even though I have no kids. But at the same time, I hate that the fact I'm a landowner or a homeowner, I am paying $4,000 this year alone in school taxes. Next year is probably going to be closer to 5,000 because the value of my home is increasing. But however, someone that's renting, that's probably making a decent amount of money, that's renting, is not feeling the pains that I'm feeling once a year. State of Texas funds 32% of the public education costs, with the remainder coming from local property tax. State of Texas funds 100% of charter schools costs. Interesting. No wonder why the public schools are against them. Regardless of political philosophy of the current Texas school finance system formula has been found unconstitutional multiple times by the Texas courts. Also, the ASC is diligently working to continue to provide comprehensive, effective education for all students when the budget is so restricted that the student services and instructional resources are affected. The internal spirit of the law has to be revisited by our legislation. But the issue is that less people are going to AISD, school taxes are going up, and I'm wondering why. Why is there's a decline of student populations going to ISD, but my taxes are going up? That makes no sense, considering since the school property is tax exempt, if I'm not mistaken, but yet their costs are increasing. You would think outside of maintenance, the building's pretty much paid for, which means that there shouldn't be too much of a expense outside of what's already being paid. Now, I do have a little internal knowledge on our school system here in Austin through a job I used to have, to where they used to have like two buildings, a school and a building downtown. I think the building downtown got sold, which was just full of people. I think it was 5 or 6 stories. And then you have another school which is completely full of just administration. I don't know if that's needed. I don't know if they could cut back on that. I don't know if they could just close that school down and that building and disperse those people out into the other campuses to help reduce the costs. Because there's definitely operation costs, there's maintenance costs, regardless if it's tax free. It just means that the school's not paying property taxes on the school, which would be a little ridiculous because it's the school is asking property to pay for them, and in return that they had to pay property. But either way, something's got to change. Because overall, I think my city taxes were about 1,200, another couple hundred. Think about the rest of it was with the ISD, ISD, but ACC, another school program, and something else. And then the school tax was like 4,000, a little shy of 4,000, a little over 4,000. Totally my bill to be right under 8,000, which means next year is probably going to be around 8,200 or 400, depending on how much my property evaluates higher, which means every year I'm going to be paying more and more, and almost half of that, if not more, is going towards the school district. Something has to change, something has to give. I just don't know what. Like I said, I'm not against paying school taxes. I just wish there was a way to spread the burden to renters, to people actually taking their kids to school. If they make a certain amount, the amount is debatable, whether it's six figures, like say 50,000, you have to start paying 100 every month to offset the costs, or anything below. I don't know. That's not up for me to decide, but I'm tired as being a homeowner 100% flipping the bill. Now, when I say 100%, it's as the homeowners and landowners, we are flipping 100% of the bill to run the city and to run the school district. I'm not alone. There's a lot of people in Austin that own homes, and they are also funding it. Leave a comment down below what your thoughts are Smash the like and subscribe button on any and all platforms or just the platform you're currently working on. And also, when you do make a comment, make sure it's still there, because I did get a comment from Iris about my Trucker Convoy 2022. I read it, but it's not available. It says it doesn't exist. Sorry. But I read it, and I still have the email with what you wrote. So I might have to remember that. With that being said, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening, and have an awesome weekend.